Alright guys, so what I'm working on today is this Craftsman Weedeater. This is a coworker's piece of equipment that needs some work. I replaced the gas tank on it for him, but now we have another issue. I have to replace his carburetor, which I was able to source one off of Amazon for like 13 bucks. So it's not really worth putting any more money into it than that. It kind of is what it is with these things. These aren't really made all that well. They're not really made to last, but he did say that if I could fix it for him, he would be more than happy to pay me for it, so here we are. So in order to remove this carburetor, it's pretty easy. You just have these two hex screws that are holding everything together, and then the throttle control cable, which goes into the carb right there. So let's get started. Well, I finally got this asshole working well, pun not intended. And what I ended up having to do was I used the old carburetor because the new one that I was sent was not 100% correct. It was very similar, but the new one didn't have this base here in the middle that's sandwiched in between the primer bulb surface there and the actual bottom part of the carburetor. It was just basically just the one here and the one there. Tuning these is kind of a crapshoot. With a lot of the EPA emissions rules, it's kind of, I mean, it's not impossible to tune these. It can be done, but there's just, the carburetors on these things are so restricted to begin with. You have to really work with them to get that sweet spot. Adjusting the idle's easy. The idle speed screws right here, and you just pull that back, and I just did it so it was slow enough for me and stopped that from spinning on its own. And it seems to be working okay. But this is the spline tool that I used to tune the carburetor on this. And you have a low side, which is on the left, and a high side, which is on the right. When you get these things brand new, or even when you go to tune one of these up, you can always screw them all the way in, both screws on both sides until they bottom out. And then back the low side off. Industry standard seems to be about a turn and a half. So you just rotate the spline tool around 1.5 turns, and then you start your machine. You'll have to fine tune it just a little bit to kind of get it in that sweet spot. And how to tune one of these things: pulling the screw out lets more fuel in. Pushing the screw in cuts off fuel. So you kind of have to, again, find a sweet spot and find what works best on your piece of equipment. As far as the high side is concerned, the high side is what you're going to do, and again, that side is set at a turn and a half out from the inside of the carburetor. And you're going to start your machine up, let it idle, let it warm up a little bit, and then you're going to give it full throttle. While you're giving it full throttle, if it starts bogging down, you know, almost immediately, back the screw out about a 1/4 turn to a 1/2 turn each time. If the screw is ran in too far, it just will cut out anyways. So again, once you have it running well enough, and you might need to kind of go easy on the throttle a little bit to find the best speed, because oftentimes when these things aren't tuned properly, and you give it too much gas too fast, it'll cut it out no matter what. So sometimes you're going to kind of want to ease into it, and if it cuts out there, adjust it, get it going again, ease into it some more, and hopefully with this thing all the way bottomed out, it'll continue to run. And then you can make a finer adjustment on your high side. And that's kind of what you're going to have to figure out how to do, is adjust this just a little bit more. I went ahead and removed this thing. Trying to get the best response out of the trigger pull. That seems to be about the best spot with absolutely no load on it. I'm going to shut this thing off and reattach the end and see what we can get it to do. It might just be that that end is borderline or just a hair too much for this thing. Maybe it just doesn't have, you know, as much power to operate that as it would a normal string head. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that end back on and see where we're at. And I think this is about as best as we're going to get this thing. I am running the correct fuel mixture ratio with this, and it is brand new fuel, freshly mixed. Of course, really the best thing for this is to let it cool off and start it up cold and see how it runs cold, because often that's when a lot of people will have trouble starting these things. But running it hot as it is and all warmed up, it seems to be working okay. So enough of me babbling. Let's go ahead and give this beast a final start for you guys. And it's actually not driving the blade, it's just got some really nice bearings in it, I guess, because that thing just goes and goes until you stop it against the ground or something. So let's see how well this thing does doing this job. Rotate the handle. So I might need to tune it up just a little bit more, but I don't think it's a tuning issue at this point. I was kind of glad I was able to save this thing for them and give them a good working unit again. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. You all stay classy.